Welcome to Perspectives at Automation Fair at Home. Over the course of the last few days, we've heard from many of the senior leaders here at Rockwell Automation. We've also heard from our partners. But today, we turn our attention to our most important audience, our customers. It is their unique needs and challenges that motivate us every single day. But first, I'd like to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Jason Silva. Jason is an Emmy-nominated storyteller, filmmaker, and sought-after futurist. You may recognize Jason from his hit TV series Brain Games, which is airing on the National Geographic Channel. His inspirational videos, Shots of Awe, have received over 100 million views on social media, where he explores themes such as futurism, technology, disruptive innovation, and much more. Welcome to Perspectives, Jason.
What's up, everyone at Rockwell Automation? My name is Jason Silva. You guys might recognize me from hosting Brain Games on the National Geographic Channel for several seasons. Now, I'm excited to be here with you guys at Rockwell Automation at home. And even though we're at home, we nonetheless have to double down on our ethos of expanding human possibility. Expanding human possibility, expanding human imagination on the back of digital transformation. Now, let's start at the beginning. For me, this all begins with a passion for human creativity. For me, all of this talk of digital transformation begins with a passion for human imagination, which has then become a passion for technology. For I believe that technology is the embodiment of human creativity in the world. I believe that technology is the literalization of human imagination in the world. I believe that technology is how we turn the human mind inside out. I believe that technology is how we exteriorize the contents of our imagination. I believe that technology is literally exemplifies the idea that as we imagine, so it becomes. Technology becomes the concretization of human intention, right? Technology is an extension of our minds and an extension of our creativity. The cognitive philosophers, David Chalmers and Andy Clark, they say technology is like a scaffolding of the mind, one that extends our thoughts, our reach, and our vision. So when we talk about technological transformation, of course, we're talking about expanding human possibility. And it has always been so. We've been in a symbiotic co-evolution between our tools and technology since the dawn of humanity. If you go back 100,000 years to the savannas of Africa, when early hominids first picked up a stick on the ground and used that stick to reach a fruit on a really high tree branch, we've been using our tools, our sticks, our instruments to extend our reach, to expand human possibility on the back of our tools. As the philosopher Marshall McLuhan wrote, we build the tools and then the tools build us. Now, today we're living in an age of massive disruption. We're living in an age where it feels like the rug is being pulled from underneath our feet. It feels like things are changing so fast and we don't know exactly what to do. We've been sidelined by a viral pandemic. We've learned the hard way the meaning of the word disruption. And the question, of course, is what's different about now? Because technology has always disrupted the world, right? In its trajectory to expand human possibility, technology has always been the great disruptor. From the origin of the wheel to the origin of mathematics to stone tools to harnessing electricity, technology has always sidelined society. It has always disrupted the status quo on its way to transform the status quo. But back in the day, these changes happened over many generations, right? So for the most part, people were born and died in a world that didn't change very much. And that's not the case anymore. Today, the changes are felt in real time. The changes are accelerating. And the question, of course, is why, right? Technology always changed the world. So what's different about now? Why does it feel like it's happening on hyperdrive? Well, this has to do with the fact that technology changes exponentially. The reason disruption is accelerating has to do with the nature of exponential change. We think linearly. We evolved, the brain evolved in a world that was linear and local. And now we live in a world that is global and exponential. So there's an incongruence here. There's a cognitive incongruence. Linear minds in an exponential world. So what's the difference, right? Because the key to understanding how disruption expands human possibility and why these disruptions are accelerating lies in understanding the difference between linear change and exponential change, so that we can become exponential thinkers. So Ray Kurzweil, head of engineering at Google, he's got this wonderful example called the 30 steps example. If you take 30 linear steps, you get to 30. If you take 30 exponential steps, you get to 1 billion. So in the same amount of steps, 30 linear steps gets you to 30. 30 exponential steps gets you to 1 billion. And technology changes exponentially. Technology expands human possibility exponentially. Now that's the reason the smartphone in your pocket today is 1 million times cheaper, 1 million times smaller, and 1,000 times more powerful than what used to be a $60 million supercomputer that was half a building in size 40 years ago. So are you beginning to understand the possibilities here? Right? We may have linear brains, but we live in a world where the supercomputers to change the world fit in our hands, where supercomputers in our pockets in the shape of smartphones give us more computational capacity in our pockets than heads of state had 25 years ago. So we're already living in a world that has expanded human possibility at a pace of change which increasingly is beyond our intuition. And so the key now then is to change our intuition. Once we understand exponential change, we understand exponential disruption, we also understand exponential opportunity. Once we change our intuition about change, we can become exponential thinkers. And we can really take the reins in expanding human possibility. And so now I'd like to show you a video which celebrates this idea of expanding human possibility. It's called "To Be Human is to Be Transhuman." Behold it and feel it. Cheers. So there's a great line by Shakespeare in which he says, "We know what we are, we know not what we may be." And in the age of accelerating technologies in which we extend the cognitive reach of our minds, the perimeters of our humanness with these extensions of self, these exoskeletons, these technological scaffoldings, the wings of our aircrafts and the signals traveling through our smartphones, sending our thoughts electrified at the speed of light across oceans of sky. We redefine and extend what it means to be human. Edward O. Wilson says, we have actually decommissioned natural selection, and now we must look deep within ourselves and decide what we wish to become. We are now the chief agents of evolution. We have reversed engineered the software of biology and are about to rewire and upgrade and redefine what it is to be a Homo sapien. Juan Enriquez uses the term Homo evolutus, the being that evolves itself, that transforms itself, right? Ray Kurzweil, we didn't stay in the caves. We haven't stayed on the planet. Biology, just another membrane to be transcended. Marvin Minsky used to say, will robots inherit the earth? Yes, they will, but they will be our children. I love this idea because we hear the term transhumanism, and what it means to be human is to be transhuman. We are the species that transforms and transcends. We never stopped. We always did. It's what we are. So, as you can see, I am very passionate about human possibility. The whole ethos of expanding human possibility is what fuels me, and I believe that the means by which we expand human possibility is through doubling down on technology as made manifest through digital transformation. Now, I've talked to you about that how digital transformation has been occurring at an exponential rate, and it's crucial to wrap our heads around these implications so that we can transform our thinking and start becoming exponential thinkers. Now, I've had the opportunity to travel across the world and to speak to audiences about the astounding implications of digital transformation and its exponential progress. And people say, wow, but they also say, yeah, I agree, because I've seen it. It may seem counterintuitive, but we've witnessed it directly, so we don't contest that digital transformation and the expansion of human possibility is happening exponentially. But the question I do get from people is, there are other things in our reality that are not exponential technologies. We are still biological beings who live in a world made of concrete and atoms. But it turns out, folks, if you really want to talk about expanding human possibility, you must become well versed in the reality that everything is becoming an information technology, and thus subject to these exponential rates of progress. So an example being biology. We are biological beings, but biotechnology, which means mastering the information processes of biology, is now turning biology into a programmable medium. So we are becoming programmable beings because we are alphabetic all the way down. DNA is code. Our genes are little software programs, and increasingly the capacity to manipulate those genes, to program those genes away from disease, away from aging, to intervene in our biology. This is advancing exponentially. Gene sequencing, the speed at which we can sequence the gene, right, is advancing 3 times faster than those exponential numbers I spoke to you about before. So the speed of biotechnology progress has exceeded Moore's law, has exceeded exponential speed. Think about that. Larry Page certainly has, the co-founder of Google. That's why he started Calico, the California Life Extension Company, a software company for biology. Silicon Valley is going to become the biology valley. They understand the next space ripe for disruption is the fusion of digital transformation and biotechnological transformation, right? AI and robotics, artificial intelligence meets biotech. This is the next space of massive transformation and massive expansion of human possibility, and it's advancing exponentially. There's also nanotechnology. Nanotechnology patterns atoms in the world, the building blocks of reality, and turns the physical world into a programmable medium. Eric Drexler's book, The Engines of Creation, talks about the implications of nanotechnology. Nanobots deployed in our bodies, transforming us from inside out. There's a reason Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler's book, Abundance, Why the Future Will Be Better Than You Think, followed by Bold, followed by their latest, Why the Future Will Be Faster Than You Think. 3 books they've written about these exponential trends and how the expansion of human possibility on the back of digital transformation and biotechnological transformation is opening up panoramas and vistas that are beyond the human imagination. We're seeing this play out today. The viral pandemic of 2020 and the speed at which we're going to synthesize a new vaccine to cure this illness will be the fastest vaccine development in history. Some of those vaccines are using cutting-edge technology, manipulating RNA to find a solution to the ills of the coronavirus. So we're seeing these technologies at play, my friends. It's an exciting time to be alive. It may be a difficult time. It may be a moment of disruption that is uncomfortable, right? But it is also an opportunity for massive reinvention, and we must remain positive. We must remember that we're on a mission here. The expansion of human possibility is our lifeblood. It's our ethos. It's the why, right? Start with why, said Simon Sinek. Well, that's our why. The expansion of human possibility. And on that note, this next video is called The Future of Us. It takes inspiration from Marshall McLuhan's notion that it's always been the artist who knows that the future is the present and uses his work to prepare the grounds for it. Behold, the future of us. Let's talk about the future of us. What does that even mean? The future of us. It's a look at what comes next. It's a look at what might be. Because today, exponentially emerging technologies are transforming what's possible. They're helping us overcome, transcend even biological limitations. The very rules of what it is to be human are up for grabs. We're rewriting the software of life with biotechnology. We're turning matter into a programmable medium with nanotechnology. We're creating sentient minds with artificial intelligence that are not bound by the limitations of biology. These 3 overlapping revolutions, GNR, genetics, nanotechnology, and robotics, together will be leveraged to lead us towards a black hole-like, impossible to fathom singularity. It's like staring into the sun, a moment of a rousing symphonic climax when all of mind, leveraged and networked together, transcends its biological origins and we become something more. People worry about the AIs and the them. Well, as Kurzweil says, that's going to be us. The future of us is ours to dream up. So we're back. Now, as you can see, as we move towards the future, it's important to think outside the box. It's important to step outside our cognitive comfort zone. Some of these ideas, some of these implications of exponential change, some of these expansions in human possibility are going to require us to take leaps beyond the been there's and seen that's of the adult mind. You know, again, to reiterate the point, once a mind is stretched by a new idea, it never returns to its original position. Stephen Johnson, in his book Where Good Ideas Come From, A Natural History of Innovation, speaks of the adjacent possible. The adjacent possible is like a shadow, right, from the future that hovers over the present, provides a map, a vision, a glimpse of all the ways in which the present can reinvent itself. So if we're interested in using digital transformation and advances in biotechnology and nanotechnology to literally expand human possibility, we need to go beyond our mental frameworks of what is possible. We need to basically annihilate our limiting beliefs here, and we need to really step outside of our cognitive boundaries to really expand our imagination. Now, Rockwell Automation, it's such a thrill to be here with you guys at Rockwell Automation Fair at Home, because you guys get it. You guys understand how automation improves efficiency, how you empower your customers and your clients and other companies to step up their game, to prepare themselves for the future, to be more resilient, to be more adaptable, to optimize how they do everything. You know, automation really is the means to transformation. You automate, then you innovate, then you innovate, and then you automate, and then you automate, and then you innovate. This is what you guys understand better than everyone. And there are some technologies that are already here in a way, that have already been seeded even before we get to the tomorrowland of artificial intelligence and biotech. But something as simple and obvious as the fourth industrial revolution is made manifest today in things like the Internet of Things, or as you might call it, the intelligence of things. The intelligence of things is what happens when you deploy exponentially advancing sensors, miniature sensors, increasingly affordable sensors, ubiquitous sensors into everyday objects. Once you put sensors into everyday objects, you put feedback into everyday objects, you put AI into everyday objects. And as Kevin Kelly says, founder of Wired magazine, you start to cognitize the world, put cognition into the world the same way you electrified the world when you harnessed electricity. So now we went from electrifying the world to now cognitizing the world to eventually automating the world, creating a world that is a la carte, creating an on-demand economy where customers and companies and individuals and cultures and governments can interact with each other seamlessly. Everything becomes optimized, everything becomes elevated by a whole step function, right? Everything becomes increasingly an opportunity for rapid learning and massive automation and transformation. And it's going to reveal us to ourselves through things like the intelligence of things, but also the quantified self, that's just going to open up a slew of new industries and further new opportunities and so on and so forth, and the cycle continues. And so I'd like to show you now a video called The Intelligence of Things that kind of becomes a little anthem on what this might look like, a world made smart and a world made automated. Enjoy. We've all heard the increasingly used trendy term, the Internet of Things, and how game-changing it's going to be as we extend sensors, miniature sensors, into everyday objects. Everyday objects will start to give us real-time feedback, and the world essentially will come alive. This is the Internet of Things. But what if we evolved the term a little further? What if instead of the Internet of Things, we enter the realm of the intelligence of things? The intelligence of things is where the Internet of Things meets artificial intelligence, because the future of artificial intelligence is senseless unless we extend it into the world of everyday objects. This idea that as we impregnate intelligence into the world of physical things that we inhabit, the world essentially will come alive. This real-time feedback, this interface that will become enlivened with intelligence will essentially will birth a world that will increasingly talk back to us. Now, how this will change human subjectivity, how this will change the human condition, the space of mind in which we dwell, is in the following way. Increasingly, we'll dovetail our minds to the world, right? And as the world starts talking back, the distinction between self and world will start to disappear. The external space, the external world will increasingly start to feel like an extension of our mind, like an extension of our agency, which will bleed over into a world of predictability, a world that will know what we want before we want it, a world of serendipity, a world in which you look for something, you find something else, and you realize that what you found was more conducive to your needs than what you thought you were looking for. We're talking about a world optimized for human creativity and human enterprise, a world that is responsive, a world that is alive, a world that is intelligent. As I imagine, so it becomes, and this is the very essence of magic. Now, you're pumping all this data, you're pumping all this AI into sensors, into the world of everyday objects, and again, you birth a world, the intelligence of things. The mind will have fully turned itself inside out. We will be inhabiting the condensation of human imagination. The nodes in our brain, the neurons will have spilled out into the world. We will cloak the planet in mind and data. This, my friends, is a singularity of mind and meaning. When everything becomes linked with everything else, matter becomes mind. This is the intelligence of things. So, I'm painting a picture, guys, right? I'm the motivational speaker. I'm the one here to talk about the future of innovation and automation and technology and the future of human imagination and all the ways in which we can really make manifest our grand vision. You know, David Deutsch, in his book, The Beginning of Infinity, he talked about the topography of a modern city. It's a great metaphor, great lens through which to make better sense of the implications of what I'm speaking to you about. But he says if you look at the topography of a modern city, that's a topography, the buildings, the shapes, the structures, where the forces of mind and creativity and commerce and innovation and imagination, those forces have trumped the forces of geology. So human imagination, human enterprise, right? The expansion of human possibility has trumped geology. All right, what that means is that nothing is beyond our grasp. Nothing is beyond our reach. Nothing is beyond human possibility, right? Which is the theme of this event. And so, you know, it's been a difficult year, right? It's been a year of fear and it's been a year of disruption, and it's been a year where industries have been sidelined and people have lost their jobs and people have lost their lives, and the government has been in disarray and civilization has been in disarray, and we're being forced to stay at home. I mean, this viral pandemic has been a difficult thing, one that might tempt us into fatalism and despair and doom and gloom. But that would be the antithesis of the human spirit. That would be the antithesis of the expansion of human possibility. The expansion of human possibility is about soaring beyond our limitations. Like Kevin Kelly, the co-founder of Wired magazine, wrote, imagine how impoverished the world would have been without the technology of the oil painting in time for Van Gogh, right? Or how impoverished human culture would be if we didn't invent the technology of the musical instrument in time for Beethoven and Mozart to make manifest their grand, beautiful visions and artistic renderings. The point being, we must remember, as innovators, as automators, as instrumenters of human possibility here, that the tools that we make might be used in ways we cannot even imagine. They can expand human possibility in ways that we cannot even fathom. And it is our responsibility to plant those seeds, to forge those tools, to create a cauldron by which we create the tools to create the impossible. And that's what we are all about. And this next video addresses the 2020 doom and gloom pandemic. It addresses it. And then it says, you know what? This can be our finest hour. This can be the moment in which we can rise. And on that note, my friends, behold the video you've been waiting for to close out my remarks. Let us expand human possibility and let us rise. Watch. As an optimist, I often struggle with fatalistic narratives about the world. I am a person that believes in our fundamental capacity to overcome all of our limitations. I believe in the human being as the animal that transcends its limitations. This has become my bumper sticker. This has become my mantra, right? We didn't stay in the caves. We haven't stayed on the planet, and we won't stay within even the limitations of biology. The sky is the limit. Dream bigger than ever before. And yet, I have to contend with a world increasingly that feels like if it bleeds, it leads. Doom equals gloom. Gloom because of the doom that is inevitable. We're all going to hell. This fatalistic resignation that says, well, between climate change and civil unrest and pandemics plaguing the planet, the system is about to collapse. These narratives of system failure, I think, while perhaps lighting a fire under our ass, they are ultimately self-defeating, for it serves us not to lose all hope. The minute we resign ourselves to some kind of horrific inevitability, we invite a nihilism into our lived experience that pillages our inner life. We might as well be dead. As Einstein said, he who can no longer stand in awe is as good as dead. Now, this is not some Pollyanna-ish dismissal of very real problems in the world that need to be addressed. What this is a dismissal of the fatalism that invites nihilism, that says that we are screwed and there's nothing else to do. For I believe that in the midst of our most difficult and harrowing moments can also be our finest hour. Like the film Apollo 13 so elegantly conveyed on screen, it is at times of crisis sometimes that we make manifest our greatest capacities. We rise to the occasion. To be human is to transcend and overcome our most difficult and existentially threatening moments. And we stand at a unique time in history at this moment. We stand before us lies, a fork in the road, I believe. And the question is, will we rise to the occasion? As Jamie Wheel once told me, paraphrasing something else, will we go from problems to be solved to problems that solve us? Will the act of seizing this moment and finding new ways of addressing old problems be the moments in which these existential problems remake us and transform us? Will we rise to the occasion? Will we up-level ourselves? Will we engender a communal experience of the astronaut overview effect, where we see the big picture? Will we become inclusive stakeholders in an incarnation and manifestation of the African saying, Ubuntu, I am because you are? If we come to realize this, that we are the alchemists, we are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, then perhaps this moment, as existentially bleak as it seems, can catapult us to the next level, beyond the bumper sticker that invites an expansion of our consciousness. Can we make manifest our potential? Can we become the star children? Can we make our stand? This is the moment. Lose yourself. Find yourself. They're both interesting and inviting invitations, but ultimately it's make yourself. Make yourself. Here's our chance.
Thank you, Jason. That was great. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
Oh, it would be my pleasure.
Okay,
Please.
fantastic. Well, first off, let's start with our company culture. What would you tell an organization that is looking to foster a culture of innovation, where should they focus to provide innovation and creativity?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing for organizations is to really think exponentially. I spoke about this in my talk. The human brain, our intuition about change over time continues to be linear. And so, in a sense, this gives us a kind of limiting belief about what's possible and a limited set of options about how to solve problems because we tend, again, to be linear thinkers. But what we know about technology is that technology continues to advance exponentially. And so the cognitive dissonance that often exists is corporations that have these fixed mindsets, these fixed linear mindsets that are constantly butting heads against the world that is changing at an exponential rate. So if you want to be innovative, you have to embrace disruptive thinking. You have to shatter your limiting beliefs. And really, you have to change that intuition from linear thinking to exponential thinking. Because once you become an exponential thinker, the seemingly insurmountable becomes inevitable. The impossible becomes possible. It's like that quote that says there are decades where nothing happens and there are weeks when decades happen. I think thinking exponentially makes us, I think, more innovative. It gives us a kind of heightened plasticity and a capacity to think outside the box and to move beyond the been there's and seen that's of the adult mind that gets so set in its own ways.
So with that, Jason, I think 2020 certainly feels like the year that the decade happened for many of us. And there's been
Absolutely.
just so much change, this year and looking to the future. Do you have anything that you would make a prediction on of what will stay the same as we look into the next year?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think 2020 has become this apt metaphor or sort of a stand-in for exponential change. In the case of 2020, it was the kind of exponential change that sort of sidelined and put humanity on its knees. But I think it made for a very visceral and powerful example of just how quickly the world can be upended by something that happens and impacts us in an exponential way. Now, I happen to think that this was kind of an anomaly in that it was, a viral pandemic. It was a very negative impact. But for the most part, exponential disruptions are the kinds that give us astounding new capacities. One example that I used in my talk is the average smartphone in your pocket is 1,000,000 times cheaper, 1,000,000 times smaller, and 1,000 times more powerful than what used to be a $60 million supercomputer that was half a building in size 40 years ago. So 40 years ago, we probably couldn't have imagined that today we'd have devices in our pockets that are basically supercomputers, or that a young kid with a smartphone in Africa has better communications technology than a head of state had 25 years ago. But in a way, because of these supercomputers in our pockets, because of things like the internet, because of these digital transformations that have already exponentially impacted the world, we were better able to absorb the impact of this pandemic. Look how quickly work went remote. Look how quickly we had to change how we do things. Look how, in a sense, painful, yes, but also adaptable we have shown ourselves to be. I mean, here we are having this conversation, doing this event, all on the back of technologies that 10 years ago really were not available.
It would be possible, yeah.
And
so,
right. Exactly. So, when I see to the future, look, I think we're going to get a handle on this pandemic. I think once these vaccines come online, it's going to be the fastest vaccine development in all of human history. And far from that being a scary thing or, reckless, went too fast in the process. No, it's going to show that because of advances in things like biotechnology and the speed at which we can manufacture these vaccines, that we will have a victory over this virus that we will look back upon and see, wow, look, we adapted quickly, we adapted how we work, we adapted how we live, and at the same time, we exponentially resolved this problem. So I see us overcoming the hurdles of this virus and moving back to the things that we don't want to live without, which is human contact and being around each other. I mean, I love being able to connect with you guys remotely, but I miss the feeling in the room. And that hasn't been emulated yet with digital technology. Although haptic feedback and virtual reality will eventually get us there, and we will have the option of a kind of presence that feels as visceral as the real thing. But nonetheless, look, I see companies deciding perhaps a hybrid model, because there are a lot of remote workers that prefer working remotely, and there are a lot of costs potentially that could be saved, and a lot of kind of a workload or that could be optimized, But at the same time, I think that there will, when it's safe to do so, be a return to some things that are less about efficiency and more
Yep.
about just well-being and the need to be around each other. And also the idea of the coffee shop notion of innovation is that sometimes it's the water cooler conversations, the things that happen when people are around each other that can't really be planned for, or set a virtual call to talk about, that just emerge when people can connect seamlessly. But so that's what I see. I see one of those things where, Steve Jobs used to say, life cannot be understood looking forward, can only understood when looking backwards. So I
Yep.
think we'll look back, a couple months from now and be like, wow, look at everything we did. Look at how we adapted. Look at how quickly we did this or that. And I remain optimistic. I was frazzled like everybody has been by all this, but I think we're going to do all right in the end.
That's very true. And, I find you and your talk before very inspirational and optimistic. I'm curious, Jason, when you are looking to seek an inspiration, where do you go and who do you turn to when you're seeking to be inspired?
Yeah, well, I think it's very important for people to think about the role that novelty plays in inspiration. Often to think outside the box, you have to get outside of the box. And what happens is, when you're a child, there is no box, right? Because you haven't constructed one yet. So the world is boundless and full of mystery and full of possibility. As you grow into adulthood, you start to create a map of the world, a map of reality. And that map helps you orient yourself in the world. And it's like learning a commute to work. After a while, the commute runs on autopilot,
Yep.
so you don't think about it anymore. But eventually, people can get so stuck in their own maps, they can get stuck in their patterns and stuck in their habits, and those can have a deadening effects on our creativity because we're relying on the maps, and so we're kind of half asleep. We're running on autopilot. The problem with that is that the territory outside your maps keeps changing, right? Exponential technologies change the world, changing, things keep changing. But if you stay in your maps, there comes an incongruity. You don't understand why you keep getting disrupted. You don't understand why you're the last to find out about trends or things that are changing, and it's because you're stuck in your maps. So I often tell people you have to shake yourself out of your maps, and that can the easiest way I can think of is simply exposure to novel experiences, exposure to environments or cultures or people or languages or hobbies or just basically things that are outside your routines and outside your patterns. And what this tends to do is pierce holes in your maps. And once you pierce holes in your maps, well, the light gets in, right? New ideas, new insights, new dots are connected, and so on and so forth. And so I often tell people the pathway to inspiration lies in getting outside of your routines and your habits.
I love that image of the piercing holes in maps because, here at Rockwell, we believe that when we can combine the imaginations of people with the potential of technology, we can make the world work better, more connected, more
That's right.
productive, more intelligent. I guess to round
That's
out our
right.
conversation here, Jason, I'd love to know your opinion on what can manufacturers do to transform this next generation of innovation?
Well, I think there has to be an awareness and an embrace that, digital transformation and automation, is not slowing down. If anything, it's continuing to compound in an exponential manner. And so I think people that work in manufacturing, no doubt, have seen how their industries have been transformed in the last 25 years. So the last thing they want to do is assume that this is going to steady. Right. The whole notion of exponential change, particularly with robotics, digital transformation, all of these things that play out in manufacturing and automation is that, we need to realize that we need to probe what Stephen Johnson calls the adjacent possible. So Stephen Johnson wrote a book called Where Good Ideas Come From, A Natural History of Innovation. And he describes the adjacent possible as a shadow from the future that hovers over the present. and provides a map of all the ways in which the present can reinvent itself. So what we need to be doing is we need to be beginning today with the technologies that aren't here yet, with the capabilities that aren't here yet, because the speed at which we're going to catch up with those technologies is counter to our intuition. Our intuition cannot remain linear in an exponentially changing world. So I see a deepening embrace of this hybrid model where more and more of what we do gets offloaded to artificial intelligence and robotics that continue to help us optimize and do things in new ways. I remember seeing the David Attenborough's new documentary on Netflix. And, one of the things that he was talking about is how do we make this world more sustainable, with things like farming and food production and so on and so forth. And he uses the example of the Netherlands, tiny, tiny, tiny little country. But nonetheless, they have embraced an amazingly disruptive and sophisticated model for food production, employing the latest and greatest technologies of automation, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. And now they are the world's #2 largest food exporter. This tiny, tiny,
Incredible.
tiny little nation has figured out a way with very limited land, limited resources, vertical farming technologies, and so on and so forth. They are the world's #2 food exporter. So I looked at models like that and examples like that as a sort of map for where we're heading, even though, again, we have to be willing to pierce. But what it shows is that we can do more with increasingly. And that's, I think, the future of manufacturing and automation.
Thank you so much, Jason, for sharing your inspiration with us here today. As we move through our rest of our presenters, I urge you to think about your next. What does it mean to you, and what does it mean to your customers? I'd like to welcome some presenters that are keenly aware of their next because they're customers of Rockwell Automations. First up, I'd like to welcome the Vice President of Supply Chain Strategy and Deployment from Johnson & Johnson, Bart Talloon.
Thank you, and great to be here and have the opportunity to talk to you about supply chain innovation at Johnson & Johnson. Most of you know Johnson & Johnson, I'm sure, but a couple of contextual background information before we kind of jump into the topic. You could switch to the next slide, please. Johnson & Johnson is the most broadly based healthcare company. We are a major top 3, top 5 company in 3 big segments of healthcare: consumer products and over-the-counter, pharmaceuticals, and a variety of medical device businesses. Across all these businesses, we have a revenue of $85 billion, 130,000 people across the globe. And with that portfolio, we serve about 1.5 billion people every day. So 1.5 billion people take or use a J&J product every day. Next slide, please. As you can imagine, with that broad portfolio, our supply chain is very complex. And here you see some data points, right? 350,000 SKUs. We have hundreds of distribution centers, hundreds of manufacturing sites, a lot of external manufacturing partners, a huge supplier base, material suppliers about 3,000. And we have 300,000 direct customers, meaning hospitals, retail, direct distributors, before the product goes to the end consumer or patient. And half of Johnson & Johnson's employee base is in supply chain. Next slide, please. We are a very decentralized global organization with 250 operating companies, but our credo is our North Star, the guiding principles, right? Defining our social responsibilities towards our nurses, employees, and stakeholders, stockholders. And our purpose statement is very ambitious. We're not just there to deliver healthcare products. We want to help change the trajectory of health for humanity. So talking about healthcare, next slide, please. We all know that healthcare is changing faster than ever, right? And COVID definitely accelerated some of these words here on the slide that reflect those trends, disruptions, and forces. Personalization, customizations. Consumers want products made for them at their terms, on demand. Changing point of care from traditional hospital setting to ambulatory surgical setting or home care. And the whole shift and pivot from pay for consumption, pay for a pill, pay for a surgery, to pay for value. So more and more focus on the experience, on the outcomes, on the efficacy and the effectiveness. And the whole demographic agenda, right? So access to growing middle classes in developing countries, while in developed countries we have aging populations. All of these patients and consumers need to be served. I want access to the products they need. So these are some of the trends that put a context on us as supply chain, how we think about innovation. So if you could go to next slide, please. We really position supply chain innovation at Johnson & Johnson very strategically, right, to help address those trends and changes and different new expectations of our customers and patients. So that's the why of supply chain innovation. And some of the words I talked about earlier are reflected on the left side of the slide. If you go to the middle part, the what, yes, we build and deploy innovation solutions, but ultimately we stitch them together to drive differentiating supply chain capabilities. And I'll come back on that in particular on the next slide in more detail. If you go to the right-hand side, the how, on the top, it's all organized. The backbone for us is that supply chain innovation engine, a very rigorous, disciplined process, staged process, almost like a product innovation pipeline. We start from the needs of the business and the customers. That defines where we innovate and what we innovate for. Our innovation teams scout and explore potential solutions to address those needs and opportunities. We bring them down, we narrow them down to proof of concepts. We develop minimum viable products. We test them out in the real world, prove that the solution works, have a value proposition, and then we deploy and scale where there is value and need. Along that process, we have two kind of ecosystems, call it. One is with the governance and the decision making with our key stakeholders are involved along the execution. They do the prioritization, they take the decisions, they decide on funding, etc. The second important ecosystem around that execution process is the external and internal partners and capability ecosystem. It can be academia, tech providers, suppliers, and strategic partners like Rockwell that help us, right? We want to tap into the best and the best brains of the world and capabilities to help us accelerate our innovation agenda. So that's how we think and are organized around innovation. Let's now go to the heart, which is the what of our supply chain innovation approach, which should bring us closer to your world. So next slide, please. So as I said, and this is very important, we do innovation to build those differentiating capabilities. Summarized again on the left side. Supply chain as a service, this is all about that digital enablement and solutions, augmenting our product, physical product offerings to change the outcomes and the experiences, right, for consumers and patients. Agile and flexible. This is the ability to respond to changes in demand and needs quickly, and COVID definitely has demonstrated how important it is, particularly in healthcare, to be agile and flexible to respond to those abrupt changes. And responsive and resiliency. So this is really when there are disruptive events, you have the ability to quickly respond and rebound from them. You see that in the middle, we develop innovation solutions, individual solutions, starting from those needs, but we integrate them along those platforms. And we kind of are organized and structured around 5 innovation platforms. You see them listed in the middle. The first 2 are more in that space of super personalization, right? Curated healthcare and our connectivity with hospital systems. The third one is around autonomous order fulfillment and the multimodal delivery, right? Last mile solutions, drones, etc. The last one is really in your world where the collaboration with Rockwell kicks in, right? Flexible modular systems and manufacturing. And I'll talk a bit more about that on the next slide, because that's a very transformational innovation platform. And the last one is all about that cyber physical connectivity, AR, VR, mixed reality. And for us, being in healthcare, novel materials and engineered surfaces, special coatings, etc., is a very an important innovation space to transform our processes, but also critical with regard to sustainability. So for us, this platform concept is very important. We are very bold about it, and we believe that it's the way to stitch solutions together into capabilities and really allow fast scaling across our organization and driving big impact for the business. And talking about impact, obviously, we do all of that. The purpose is to drive the outcomes and the experiences summarized again on the right-hand side. So tying the what back to the why, as I've explained on the previous pages. Let's now double down on that innovation platform 4 of flexible modular systems, which is an area where our innovation collaboration with Rockwell will be very strong. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So what this is about is not just the next generation of automation and robotics, right? This is really about the next gen of operational management. So as we all know, over the past decades, the way we have optimized operations and our assets has really resulted in what is mentioned there as current state fixed, dedicated, bespoke, capital intensive assets, but assets that with the current business environment are half of the time idle, right? So either there's no demand at the moment for that SKU, or we are in changeover, or we are cleaning. If you reflect back on the trends and the changes and the needs of our patients, consumers, and businesses around personalization, agility, flexibility, it's clear that this doesn't work anymore. So our future state vision is basically we turn this whole thing upside down, and we go back to individual unit operations executed by AI enabled, and these modules of unit activity can be configured into work centers, into systems, and it's like Lego bricks, right? So they're configurable and reconfigurable depending on the demand and the needs. So this really enables us to evolve from a linear, bespoke anchored supply chain to a flexible, dynamic, configurable network. So the value creation is really driven by these reconfigurable mobot modules that are AI enabled, powered by cloud robotics, and clearly they drive agility and flexibility because ultimately it basically means there's zero change over time with this concept and that unit of one operation. Supply chain resilience, yes, you can configure the systems, but you also can quickly reconfigure them depending on your needs and situation. Obviously, huge cost reduction impact, but also cash flow, right? As well, inventory as capital, because you can evolve into a robotic as a service concept, which really allows you to make it asset light and reduce your capital investment and footprint. And of course, localization and customization. This concept in the future enables you to really have very localized, not only manufacturing, but integrated supply chain offerings to enable that customization at the door of the consumer and the customer. So I think, first of all, this is an innovation space where we are strongly collaborating with Rockwell already, and even more in the future. You see the boldness of the vision. I think you also understand the platform concept of innovation, where this is an example that it has different innovation solutions integrated, resulting into those flexible systems. And obviously, it's cyber-physical connection, right, between physical solutions like robotics, advanced automation, as well as digital enablement, right? AI, cloud robotics, etc. So with that, let me, as a good segue into our collaboration. If you could go to the next slide, please. So we have a long-standing engagement and partnership between Rockwell and J&J, and our engagement really spans across both the day-to-day foundational automation systems, as well as in that innovation space I've been talking about, right? So, and on the right-hand side on the slide, you see a couple of examples in each of kind of the big collaboration areas, I would say. The foundational systems, so yeah, PLCs, DCS, SCADA, a lot of your solutions are used across our operations. And then specific, technologies or tools like Tin Manager, Factory Talk, the whole suite of PTC, PLM tools. And these are things we are using at the moment in the day-to-day operations, but we are also exploring new solutions in that space, and particularly with regard to cyber security, right? When we talk about the advanced automation and robotics, Kepware is a solution we use, and particularly with regard to these flexible systems I talked about earlier, you are a key partner to help us develop that control layer. We call it the universal translator that helps enable that configurability of those flexible systems. And digital assistant, smart asset optimization there, Emulate 3D, for example, we use in a number of our businesses for virtual reality, right, for remote equipment design and reviews with equipment suppliers. And then we're exploring quite a number of your solutions, right? Again, PTC, Chalk, and others, so AR platforms, particularly for remote interactive support in manufacturing, but also immersive trainings solutions. So this gives you kind of a couple of areas where we strongly collaborate already, and more to come in the future. So with that, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about supply chain innovation at Johnson & Johnson and the collaboration and partnership with Rockwell. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart, for that interesting presentation on universal machines and how they're impacting our lives. Next up, I'd like to welcome the Chief Technology Officer of Global Operations of Stanley Black & Decker, Sudhi Bangalore.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Sudhi Bangalore, the CTO of Global Ops for Stanley Black & Decker, and I am so excited to share the highlights of a very important transformation program that I'm running for Stanley Black & Decker. But before I start on some of the unique aspects of this program, I also want to thank Rockwell Automation for giving me the opportunities in this important Automation Fair at Home session or event for 2020. So with that, I'm going to spend the next few minutes breaking up my talk into three components. Component one will be to give you a sense of the company, of course, just a short introduction, and I'll then follow it up to give you an overview of what makes this program special, and in terms of aspiration, in terms of who we serve in this transformation program. And third, I will dig into some of the innovation that we're doing, something that is, I believe, can truly help a lot of the companies dealing and leveraging and exploiting the COVID times that we are all in. So with that, what I want to do is share some highlights of Stanley Black & Decker. It's an iconic brand. As you might have all heard of our tools, whether it is Black & Decker or Stanley, whatever the case, tools you might have. So we are number one tool company in the globe. We are about $14 billion in revenue. And then equally important, we're a very innovative company. We have about 13,000 patents, quite a feat for a legacy manufacturing company. Not only do we have these patents, we'll make them work, because PwC has declared us as one of the top 3 innovators in terms of ROI for the dollars we spend on research. And we also serve in security. We are number 2 in security, and we also are number 1 or number 2 in some of the industrial segments we play. So that's Stanley Black & Decker. And in terms of the operations that we have a large swath of plants, about 145 factories, 9 DCs, major DCs, and obviously a mix of legacy plants, mid-mature plants, and flagship plants, and we have about 61,000 employees in our company. With regards to the program itself, I want to now spend a few minutes talking about what sets this program apart. Number one, this is an enterprise-driven program. In other words, this is board-supported and CEO-driven, along with the CFO, who is our executive sponsor. I report to the CFO and also the head of global ops. So that's what makes it special. It has the right attention, the right funding, and the right enterprise level goals. And second, we have a unique delivery structure in terms of how we actually innovate and how we then deliver solutions that make sense to our operations. Third, we are absolutely driven with a very active partner ecosystem, and Rockwell being one of them. Others include Microsoft, Fanuc, and a whole host of others, including Cisco and a bunch of startup companies like Foghorn, Geminis, etc. And then finally, everything is actually supported by a brand new advanced manufacturing center that we set up in Hartford, Connecticut in 2019. And this center serves a couple of things. One, it is to actually demonstrate the art of the possible solutions we're creating to our factory folks, but it's also to help our partners innovate with us. And we have a setup that's extremely current and extremely adaptable in terms of supporting the multiple subsegments of the industry we serve. And finally, this is also meant to help the local innovation of Connecticut, which is one of the other important parts of what we do, is to do the larger good for the community. So everyone in manufacturing who love manufacturing can benefit from some of the investments and passion that we bring to the space. So with that, what I want to now do is share the highlights of a video that was actually created when we opened this center. The video has got clippings starting with our CEO, CFO, and a whole host of other people, including the governor of Connecticut. So hopefully this will give you a full view of what the vision is from people across our company, and also the government and the local officials of Connecticut and Hartford.
This center is meant for our people in the plant. It is for them to understand that the solutions we're building, right, are real. This represents the factory of the future.
At Stanley Black & Decker, innovation is in our DNA. And our Industry 4.0 journey is appropriately centered right here in the heart of Connecticut.
We believe the connected enterprise is a foundational solution that we need. Essentially, it connects our customers, our processes, our people.
Digital technology advances are wreaking havoc with the status quo across all aspects of society.
This is about the data revolution led by people, to inspire with the art of the possible, which means you continuously innovate.
But the objective is not to leave this workforce behind. It is upskill the existing workforce and then make it more attractive.
We are the Silicon Valley of manufacturing. That is what this place is all about right here.
Cities are where the battle for talent and innovation is being fought all over the world.
The word will be career. I can have a manufacturing career.
Because you can be part of something that really is revolutionary. And we want to be the hub of this next industrial revolution.
We're going to now seek the dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks, and we're going to replace them with technology.
It's about leveraging this technology and the resources to drive efficiencies and productivity, increasing our competitive advantage, and ultimately allowing us to really make where we sell.
The common themes throughout our history were simple: boldness, agility, collaboration, and reliability.
Join us in our innovation journey as together we create a future for those who make the world.
I hope you like that video. Every time I see that, I get energized. So hopefully it gave you a point or two in terms of what you could probably leverage in terms of how we have set up this program and the way we are trying to do not only serve our own landscape, people within our factories, but also the larger community in general. So now what I want to do is spend a little bit of time in terms of talking to the delivery structure. So first of all, the team that I have assembled is really made up of folks who come from many different segments of the industry. So I have folks who come from automotive, folks who come from a pharma background, and on and on. So the whole idea is to have this cross-pollination of ideas that come with folks that come with the people that come with the people that I've hired. And the other thing that we have done is to make sure that we actually have what we call as plant champions that engage with us in the COE to help create solutions that truly matter and is relevant to the factory folks. This has been a very important value add for us, and it has served us extremely well. And it also helps local innovation because it is these plant champions that actually bring ideas from the factory floor to us as opposed to the other way around. And the next important piece of how we drive value is to really design our system in a way that keep our people in the center. So we have technology and process, and we then make sure that we bring the art of the possible capabilities with the people in the center, right? So it's essentially making sure that whatever we do with this approach will ensure that, one, this truly will help upskill, reskill their capabilities, therefore opening new pathways of career for them. So this is an extremely important component, one that has special attention all the way from the CEO on down. And it is also my own personal passion. So we have a dedicated HR and training team that's part of my team to ensure that we stay true to this vision and aspiration. And I just want to spend a minute or so talking about how we have set up our partner ecosystem. We've actually broken our partner ecosystem into 3 categories. At the very top, we have thought leaders who truly help us innovate with us. In other words, co-innovate. So we have companies like Ready Robotics, PwC, Rockwell Automation, Fanuc, Omron, you name, just to give you a few names. And then we also have partners to help us drive innovation for delivery, because we want to make sure that we deliver at speed, but we also deliver at the right cost. So we have companies like SICK, Cognizant, and then Infosys, etc. So those are all the folks that's helping us drive cost and speed innovation. So with that, I'm now going to play a video that actually brings the whole concept out in a very compact manner.
We know how important a quality continuous improvement program is for the average company. A good CIP keeps an operation efficient, optimized, agile, and ready for what's next. But the irony is that most continuous improvement programs are anything but continuous. They're often highly manual, performed by centralized teams who can leave at any time and take their expertise with them. What if it didn't have to be like that? What if there was a platform capable of proactively identifying opportunities for improvement and delivering actionable, streamlined workflows into the hands of plant managers and operators? What if we could speed up the time from data to action from weeks to minutes? Now we don't have to ask. Stanley Black & Decker invented the Digital Continuous Improvement Platform, or DCIP. DCIP is an intelligent industrial collaboration platform that uses artificial intelligence to constantly detect and analyze performance opportunities, delivering value, insights, and actions to everyone from frontline floor workers to global operations leads. With DCIP, companies will save money, improve performance, and optimize their workforce automatically in real time all the time. DCIP hunting algorithms analyze and report on optimization opportunities and identify potential issues across all elements of the enterprise, including safety, labor, assets, scrap, material flow, and inventory. DCIP enables factory workers to quickly collaborate with colleagues or off-site experts and act on this data analysis in their everyday work. Imagine if AI could analyze all key sources of factory data in seconds and provide plant managers and operations teams with targeted insights and actions supported by a network of collaborators such as domain experts and continuous improvement specialists. Imagine if plant operators and line leads were able to immediately run these new workflows, changing their approach to improvement on the fly, seeing their own KPIs in real time, and uploading key implementation data from their mobile device. And what if all this optimization effort was tracked, aggregated, and served up to global operations leads so they could swiftly and conveniently view how data-driven, tech-enabled, and lean-led optimization results in millions in savings? So how does it all work? Stanley Black & Decker has been providing the makers of the world with the tools and innovative solutions to get the job done since 1843, and our new digital frontier is no different. Having demonstrated the value of AI solutions in our internal operations, Stanley Black & Decker is positioned to scale that expertise into a service that will drive success for customers' operations. What could be weeks of analysis is accomplished in minutes as DCIP's underlying data architecture pulls from a wide range of sources within the factory, including machines, labor, and IT systems. Pre-built performance apps use AI to contextualize this data, hunt for leakages and variances in operational metrics, and then immediately initiate actions for workers on the shop floor. And DCIP works with existing CIP infrastructures capable of integrating with third-party applications and pulling data from current IoT and other industry investments. A workflow engine streamlines standard work and event-based coordination so plant operators can optimize performance in real time. All the while, the platform stores and continuously analyzes historical data, learning from past opportunities to inform optimization efforts at other plants across the enterprise so that organizations won't have to solve the same problem twice. By enhancing continuous improvement through AI, collaboration, and automation, DCIP is able to replace manual processes that take weeks and deliver them in a matter of minutes at the touch of a button. And this is just the beginning. DCIP will grow as an essential piece of Stanley Black & Decker's industrial services offerings, working with our automation and performance monitoring solutions to provide holistic solutions for our partners. DCIP, reshaping how factories improve, because staying ahead of the curve is what we do.
I hope that that video was insightful for you and was interesting and exciting, because I've watched it a couple of times, and every time I watch it with our partners and my team, we come up with more ideas. So with that, I want to close out on this note. We all have our own transformation that we're doing, whether it is in a small way or in a major way. And in some ways, we're all looking for inspiration and that nugget of best practice that we could leverage in our own programs. So hopefully, I was able to provide one or two nuggets that might serve your transformation journey. Again, I want to thank Rockwell for the opportunity, and for all of you who have watched this video. Have a wonderful show. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Sudhi, for that presentation on the future of manufacturing. Up next, I'd like to welcome Senior Vice President of Innovation for Georgia Pacific, Mike Carroll, who will be joined by the Managing Director of North America Industry X at Accenture, Pete Frandina.
Thanks, Sydney. Mike and I are very excited about the opportunity to talk with you about an exciting opportunity that Accenture, Rockwell, and Georgia Pacific are working on. I think this is a great example of how ecosystem partners are coming together and bringing the strengths of different organizations together to solve a problem. So what we'll first do is I'll let Mike talk a little bit about what Georgia Pacific has been facing, the issues that they've been struggling with, and how we've approached or how we've reached the point in time where we're going to tackle this together. So over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Pete. So technology drives the productivity of all our plants, right? And it takes people to keep that technology running, specifically technicians. And as people started to retire, as we went through, the baby boomers started to retire, what we noticed was that year over year, you saw the amount of open E&I technician jobs grow and grow and grow year over year. And what we had to do was face this hard truth that the methods we were using to fill those roles and solve for those open positions just wasn't working anymore. And so we figured we had to come up with a different way of solving that. So last year, I was at the Automation Fair, and it was announced that Accenture and Rockwell had formed this partnership to work on larger problems for industry together. And so I suggested that perhaps we would work together to solve this problem, not only for us, but it's also an industry problem, and that we would form this work and create this virtuous cycle of mutual benefit between our three organizations to come up with a broader look at the problem and perhaps solve it for all of us.
Perfect. So let me describe a little bit about what we're doing. As Mike indicated, I think ultimately the issue that Georgia Pacific is facing, and probably many of you out there that are listening to this, is you have an aging workforce, you have a loss in capacity, potentially you have open roles, and you have to find a way of getting more out of your current workforce in the technician space and in the E&I tech space, or just in general in the operator maintenance space. So how do we approach the problem? I think the first thing, as I indicated earlier, it's about the power of bringing together multiple partners. You know, Mike picked up on it at last year's Automation Fair. Rockwell brings the legacy, understanding, and depth in operational technology, the ability to understand how a process is working and how to control that and getting the data out of the system. Accenture provides the system integration standpoint and the ability to convert that into the end user and insights there. And then obviously Georgia Pacific provides the knowledge of their production assets and what metrics and where should we look to drive value. What we're trying to do, once again, is drive productivity so that those individuals can get more out of their day, and that someone like Mike or Georgia Pacific as a whole is less reliant on having to hire more people to get the same work that they need to do. And then the last thing is, once you have that data, once you've automated out some of those non-value added activities, and you're left with the core thing that a technician needs to do, it's information that technician needs to make them more productive and make them deliver more value. So it's getting the insights to them, getting that data connected, and getting it to where they can be more useful in the field. It's early on, but we're seeing a lot of good progress with the work of the Rockwell team, the Accenture team, and Mike and the Georgia Pacific team. I'm very excited about where we are, and I would encourage you guys to think about the applicability for your organization. Think about where you have technology that is stranded, where you have potentially a need to get more out of some of your key roles and positions within your site, and where you can leverage today's newer technology to drive value that you're expecting and needing. So if this is something that you are struggling with, if you are resonating with the fact that you have open recs and you want to get more productivity out of your field personnel, if you feel like your data is stranded and you want to get more out of bringing it together and get more insights, and if you overall want to get to a place where you're turning that into a value equation, then reach out to your Rockwell account lead, reach out to your Accenture account lead. We're very happy to have this discussion with you. And while we're early days with Georgia Pacific, we're already seeing that this could lead to big benefits for them, and I'm sure it could lead to the same for you. So with that, thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Now, let's welcome back Rockwell Automation Chairman and Chief Executive Officer Blake Moret, who will be joined by our partner, Willem Sundblad, co-founder and CEO of Odin Technologies, and our valued customer, Will Berry, Senior Vice President of Southwire International.
Great. Well, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome Will Berry and Willem Sundblad to Automation Perspectives. Will is a Senior Vice President at the Southwire Company in Carrollton, Georgia, and Willem is the CEO of Odin. Will, welcome.
Thank you very much, Blake. Good to be here.
It's good to see you again. And Will, Rockwell was fortunate to be selected along with Odin for a pretty important project that Southwire has going on. Can you give us some of the details about that?
Yeah, I'd love to, Blake. Southwire is many companies have a lot of data in our systems. We've been collecting it now for 70 years, but it exists in a lot of different locations today. One of the challenges we have is pulling all this information together and bringing more visibility to the opportunities. So we feel the solution we're implementing will aggregate the data and deliver opportunities for improvement to the right person at the right time. And our expectation is that these tools will automatically prioritize these opportunities. So it's all about the data for us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Will, I know from being associated with Southwire for some time that increasing productivity and continuous improvement is really important to you. Willem, Southwire saw something in the combination of Rockwell and Odin, the combination of your expertise, your software innovation, along with Rockwell's plant floor expertise and long history, providing that value. Can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, why is the combination so strong?
Well, it's a great question. I think, both of us are really working on bringing the connected enterprise to life. And that is a complex task. It spans many user personas, it spans systems, it spans multiple workflows. And so with Rockwell bringing in the entire infrastructure and the different systems, we're only as good as the data that's being collected. So we kind of look at Rockwell as being the connective tissue for the entire Southwire project here, and we're adding some intelligence to it. So what we bring to the table is the prescriptive, predictive, and what we call the guided analytics, the look here, look now information. So in that combination, you really get an intelligent, connected enterprise.
Well, as Rockwell, we're very happy to be associated with Odin. You're the newest member of our Digital Partners program. And of course, it's a journey. And Will, if I turn it to you, as Southwire looks at their own digital transformation, maybe talk a little bit about where you see you are in that digital transformation journey.
Yeah, we're looking at it as a long journey. It's nothing that happens overnight. We've got to invest the time. And so we're completely focused at this point in time on a strong and scalable foundation is the first step. We want to lay that foundation so we have something to build on going forward. One of our key drivers is the employee experience. Our first priority is to ensure the solution provides an opportunity to improve the daily experience of employees in our production operation. We want to be sure that the data is used in a way that eliminates redundant and non-value added tasks. Another key, like many others, is to ensure that we are leveraging the solution to improve all the inputs that affect OEE in our operations.
Will, you talk about employee engagement and making sure that they're a part of the solution. And we see in other similar projects how important that is, because if a technology solution gets handed down by corporate, but it's not fully adopted, and if the employees on the line don't understand the why of it, then it makes it that much tougher. What are some of the specific things that you're doing to encourage the adoption of the technology and the approach and really the change workflow in your mills?
Yeah, so, we're engaging our lean process, our quality, manufacturing leaders to make sure we have good alignment with all groups. And being aligned will help us design and build the platform to meet their needs. But also, we're out with the employees to find out what makes their life frustrating. What can we remove from your daily tasks to make you have a better experience at work? And that can be having to write things on pieces of paper and charts, all the way to anticipating and telling the operator what's going to come up and what to be ready for in the future, so they don't get caught off guard or surprised.
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly some common themes that we've heard. Willem, maybe your perspective. What are the things that again and again, as you're working with, industrial companies on their transformation, that you see are particularly important to pay attention to?
I think some of the points that Will brought up are really spot on, especially how you fit into the workflow of the existing people who are going to try to take better decisions and actions faster. Because time to value and time to action is absolutely critical. What we're seeing is, where to start. There's really two requirements. So there's infrastructure and cultural readiness. And the cultural readiness, comes from, are you ready to adopt this technology? And that really starts with knowing why you're doing it in the first place. Now, Will already brought up OEE, but what part of OEE is the one that's going to move the needle for you the most, the fastest? And then the infrastructure, we see from a lot of customers that either they don't feel like they have enough data, or they feel like they have too much, but it is inaccessible. That you can, trip yourself up if you're not fitting it into the workflows of those user personas, because you got to make their lives easier, got to make their jobs easier. Otherwise, the change management is going to be too tricky.
Yeah. What we also see is a lot of times the successful approach involves multiple partners working with an industrial company to meet their needs. And so it involves bringing in multiple skills and expertise, because really no one company has all the answers all the time. And as we see between Rockwell and Odin, we're going to have to team together with Southwire on this. I guess, Will, from your perspective, as you look at projects and the success factors of projects in the past that delivered what you expected them to, what were some of the attributes of partners that you found to be especially important?
Yeah, so, the partners that we deal with, we expect them to use their knowledge and experience to help us stay on course and avoid scope creep. Also, we expect them to continue to enhance and refine their product offering to meet our needs. And we expect a reliable, scalable platform that provides ease of use for end users and a robust and reliable architecture.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess as we bring the session to close, any additional comments, any important points about what will be crucial as we go forward?
Yeah, one area that I was surprised with as we started this process is the cybersecurity side of it. How important that security and protecting that OT network or protecting the IT network is to companies going forward and in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. There really isn't an air gap anymore that protects, IT from OT and vice versa. And generally, we find it's the first and the last question when we engage in these types of projects. So it's part and parcel of it. Well, I'd like to thank you. Yeah, as it should be. Absolutely. I'd like to thank you, Will and Willem, for joining me on this segment. And most importantly, Willem, I look forward to partnering with you as we go forward and bring Southwire the great outcomes that they're looking for. So looking forward to that journey with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Willem.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now I'd like to turn it back to Blake, who is joined by Chief Executive Officer of Cisco, Chuck Robbins.
Well, Chuck, welcome to Automation Fair Perspectives, and looking forward to chatting a little bit about a partnership. Any successful partnership really begins with an understanding of how we add value together to customers. And in our case, as we bring the connected enterprise to life, It's really about creating that strong foundation for taking data and turning it into useful information. And, customers are looking for that as a way to increase their resiliency and their agility, particularly now during these times. And really what we're seeing is that our customers are demanding that the two of us work together on their digital transformation plans. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of customer requirements.
Yeah, Blake, first of all, thanks for having me. And I think, everything that made our relationship a good idea, I think 13 years ago, has been reinforced and probably accelerated here in the last 9 months. Look, all of our customers, I think, went through the same thing we all did, where we did the best we could to get our employees functional from home and working from home effectively. And then we went into this mode of really trying to reprioritize and think about our future. And as the pandemic has continued to stay with us longer than any of us certainly would hope, I think it really has highlighted this notion of business resiliency. And it's really led our customers to think very distinctly about their priorities and the things that they're focused on. And in many cases, it's around smarter industrial systems, more connected industrial systems, the integration and bringing together of the operational capabilities with classic IT, thinking about security, and how do I actually move on some of the transformational projects now, because I feel like we need to. And so I think the great news is we have a strong foundation in our partnership, and I think that allows us to be even more effective today with our customers.
Yeah, it's really about getting the best that both of us have to offer, and I think the pandemic has intensified the focus on what's truly important. And our ability to offer an integrated, simplified solution that really brings together IT and OT is something that we're seeing a very high demand for. And it's across the whole life cycle of the customer's investment. It's through the design and the operation and the management of these systems. We talk a lot about the convergence of IT and OT, and it's not just about the technology, about the people and even the organizational design that we have and our customers have. What are you seeing in terms of the changes in collaboration between IT and OT resources at our customers?
Yeah, we've obviously seen a real convergence over the last few years, as you have, obviously, and candidly, it's the same dynamic that actually brought us together and really continues to bring us together, right? Your experience, our experience, we bring it together, we can do unique things, and I think that's true actually within the organizations. And we've seen it historically within IT, where even small fiefdoms of storage and networking, or the voice and the IP networking teams had to come together. This is clearly a much more complicated one with OT and IT coming together. And at Cisco, sometimes when we're assessing an opportunity or a problem, we actually say, that's not a computer science problem, that's more of a cultural problem or a cultural challenge. And I think in this case, it can be more complex, just really getting the dynamics resolved, who owns what, who's responsible for what, the operational governance model moving forward, and frankly, the cultural shifts that have to transpire when we're going through this kind of transformation. I think those are probably more complicated than the technology that we can collectively bring to bear.
Yeah, I think that's right for our customers and also for us to be able to organize to bring all these pieces together, because holistically we talk about the convergence of IT and OT, but it's really an important consolidation of the technologies, the services, the organizational structure, and then, as you said, the culture as well. When we talk about the technology, the security of it for us is very often the first and the last question that our customers ask as we bring these things together. And certainly as IT is trying to create a holistic, process and create a defense in depth across the whole organization, that's really an important part of this, is to be able to provide security that enables the ability to, with confidence, exchange the data. Can you, and we're doing some things together in terms of our technologies and our services that are integrated, but can you offer some thoughts about where this is all going?
Yeah, that was actually one of the first areas that you and I worked on together was our security portfolios and capabilities. And I think, look, I'm pleased to hear that, your customers, is the first thing, the last thing that they ask, because that probably wouldn't have been the case 8 to 10 years ago. And I think it is really important, and it's becoming even more important. I mean, if we think about what's going on, first of all, just bringing more of these industrial systems onto the IP network just increases the threat surface, right? And it just exposes more critical infrastructure, critical capabilities to hackers or those who would want to do harm. And at the same time, we're operating in a world where our users are all remote, or a lot of them are remote. Our applications, frankly, are running in private data centers, public clouds. They're running as SaaS applications. And so the data and the traffic flows and the number of systems and the things and the people and the devices that are all connected have really created a complex scenario for us to work together to secure. So it is important, I think, to bring together people who have expertise in both the industrial side with what your customers, your ecosystem does for you every day, then the experience we have, and really working to create that holistic solution. And I think in the future, it's going to have to be dynamic. It's going to have to learn, in real time what's going on. We're going to have to make sure we're taking information about an authentication that we see in one part of the network and how we ought to characterize an authentication we see in another one based on what we saw on the other side. There's a lot of really interesting correlation that's going to have to take place in the future. And so we're working on a lot of that technology. And I think the real key, again, is our partnership and what we can bring to your customers.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, we talk to our customers about the need for security to be part really of a holistic business strategy. Because I know the leadership at our customers that we're talking to is hearing it from their boards, just like I'm hearing it from my board about the importance of this. And it's really part of a strategy that considers who is the array of partners that we bring together, how's it going to get implemented, and then what's the ongoing management going to be, and the combination of the technology and the expertise to bring it all together in harmony. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about what we've been able to bring the customers together and where we're going, and really appreciate, not only the partnership that we've had over all these years, but also your comments today. So thanks very much, Chuck.
Well, likewise, thanks for the partnership, Blake, and you stay safe, and all your customers and partners, take care of yourself. Thanks for allowing us to spend some time with you today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Blake and Chuck, for sharing your visions of the future and the way our companies can work together to bring about real transformative change. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our presenters here today, as well as the Perspectives presenters we had over the course of the last few days. And while this brings our Perspective session to a close, there's still so much to see and take advantage of during Automation Fair at Home. We hope to see you in our networking lounges and in our sessions through the remainder of the day. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you in person really soon.